losing the will to live. Poor,
a good start, eh?
poor Philip. He took me ages to get it all worked. Took him ages to get it all working with me. And,
I think we're okay.
there he is. I'll speak to you later. Bye.
So if there's technical difficulties, Martin.
Well done.
Always the way, isn't it? I've done lots of
Of
practices.
course. Sod's law.
I've done quite a few.
Did you know that Sod was a Victorian vicar? You didn't, did you?
No, I didn't.
SOD.
Yeah. But, I've done so many practices with this, and it's never.
Looks like you've frozen again,
Oh.
but that doesn't matter.
No,
We have a
we'll
picture.
press on. I'm not quite sure what's happening, but I'll just sort of make sure my windows are shut to make sure there's nothing that could affect anything.
Well, David will bear me out that I can kill the computer at 100 yards, so it's my fault probably.
Oh no. I mean, I've been doing like 30-minute practices with this, and it's always been absolutely fine. So never mind. So yeah, we'll just continue. So I'll just be a disembodied voice. That'll be fine. People probably enjoy it better, actually, probably, about seeing my face all the time. So just like Superman 4, we're having a few technical issues and effects problems, but hopefully we'll still enjoy it as much as we do the
So
film.
we're lining up with the very first picture of the curvature of the Earth, right?
Yeah, we're lining up. Yeah. Okay, so I think everybody should be online by now. Okay, so we'll just have a little introduction. Just introduce myself, and then I'll just introduce Martin. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Philip, and I'm obviously a big Superman fan. Superman 4 was my favorite film as a kid, so about 10 or 12. So you don't, as a kid, I think, notice the technical issues with the film and the inconsistencies. You just enjoy the adventure of it. So it's only when you go up a bit more you realize that everything wasn't that good. So basically what we're going to do is we're just going to watch the film together with Martin, and we'll just have a little chat as we go along. So thank you very much, Martin, for joining us this evening. It's very much appreciated. Martin is, for those who don't know, a very successful storyboard artist, and your credits obviously include things like a couple of Harry Potter films, Batman Begins, Alien 3, numerous James Bond films, including the much anticipated and much delayed No Time to Die. You're currently working, I believe, Martin, on the upcoming Flash film, which actually sounds very exciting. So you're still very busy after all of these years. Because when did you start working in storyboards, Martin?
When did I start working in films?
Yes.
I think about 1984.
Oh, wow.
Ask George Orwell. 1984, I think,
Yeah.
or 1983, something like that.
I was born in 84. That's actually so a very long, prestigious career, and long may it continue. So yeah, we'll all should be lined up now. So I'll do a little countdown, and then we hit 0. We'll press play. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. Hopefully we're all going okay. So we're starting.
Can people hear what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think we're all good. If you have any problems, just post on the chat.
I am responsible for these terrible credits.
I was going to say you were involved with the titles. How did it come about that you were in charge of these?
How did I turn out I was in charge? Because Sid Fury, the director, took a shine to me, and he tried to give me anything that he thought I could do, which was absolutely nothing really, except possibly some rather indifferent storyboards. But nevertheless, he it had a very small budget, so I presume he thought for the same price as a storyboard artist, he could get someone to design the credits and do concepts and do matte paintings, and hence the result.
Did the design of the credits obviously change when
No, I talked with the visual effects director, and he suggested that this is what we would do, and I said that's a very good idea. So then I went to Sid and I said this is what we're going to do, and he said, yeah, cut it in, which is what he said to virtually everything.
Right. So, so were you happy with the final? Was the version of these credits in your head?
Well, I mean, it does the job. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Because obviously, I think you probably, if the money had been a bit high, probably would have had been a bit more like Superman 1 and 2. And...
Oh yes, if the money had been behind it, I probably wouldn't have been asked to supervise it in any way at all. I'd have just been kept as a storyboard artist, I should imagine. And Harrison Ellenshaw would have coped very well, I'm sure, since he did everything on Star Wars. He was much better suited than I.
It had some very prestigious people on this film, of course. Harrison Ellenshaw, you just mentioned. And again, I think because of the budget, he doubled up as doing some second unit directing as well. So I think there was quite a few people that were doing a number of roles. Well, on the bigger picture, you would have separate departments and different people doing the various roles. So how did you come on board Superman 4 in the first place, Martin?
How did I come aboard the film?
Yes.
I honestly can't remember. I think the producer who I knew, Michael Kagan, he asked me if I'd be willing to do it, and then I spoke to John Graysmark, the production designer, and I was on.
Oh, lovely. So first question we have is from a gentleman called Gabriel. He would like to know what it was like to work with Sidney Furie.
It was very good, very amusing. As I say, he took a shine to me, so he was always approachable. He always wandered around with a coffee cup in his hand, and always seemed to be hunched over a little bit, a bit like that, a bit like an old man, like I am now. And he was quite amusing. He used to take me to lunch quite a lot, and the typical American, he said, I don't want any chips with my food because I'm watching my weight. And then while we were eating, his hand would go under the table and over onto my plate and take a handful of chips. And that's the sort of guy he was. He was very, very, very strange, but amusing.
Yeah. So I've got another question from Ray. How did you make the transition from comic strip work to storyboards? So how did you sort of that progression?
Well, in a way, they're very similar. You're telling a story in pictures, so you just have to know or get to know the film language, i.e., screen direction and eye lines and things like that. But apart from that, it's a very similar tradition, really. It's very similar to do, I thought, anyway.
Yeah. And what was the first film that you got? How did you start? What was the first film that you got the opportunity to work on?
The first film was I was a sort of quite a well-known strip cartoonist, and a friend of mine who knew lots of strip cartoonists thought he'd set up an agency for them. So he opened a short lease office in Wardour Street because he didn't have any money anyway, and nor did any of us. And he advertised as an agent for strip cartoonists. And one day a man came in off the street and said to him, did he know any storyboard artists? And he didn't, but he did know that I had done 2 or 3 storyboards for TV commercials. So he mentioned my name.
Yeah.
And the guy turned out to be probably one of the best production designers in the world, Stuart Craig. And it was just pure serendipity. And he asked if he could meet me. So I met him, and he said, would I like to meet the director of the film he was about to work on, called Greystoke? And I said, yes. And we went and met Hugh Hudson, and I sat down with both of them, and they looked at me, and Hugh said, can you draw gorillas and chimpanzees? And I very grandly said, I can draw anything. And anyway, they employed me. So and the rest is history, really. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had no idea about storyboarding in those days, so I was doing a full color frame per A4 page and doing about 16 a day. I had no idea about screen direction or anything like that. But on the basis of that, I'd met Ridley Scott, and he asked me to do Legend straight away after that. And while I was doing Legend, I met the producer on Labyrinth, and he said, would I work for Jim Henson on Labyrinth? So I said yes. And then I was sort of made. There weren't many storyboard artists in the country in those days doing feature films. I think there was about 3 of us, and maybe 4, and I made the 5th. So the competition wasn't fierce, but then not many films were being made in those days. So in England.
Oh yes, of course. That does bring us nicely to a question from a gentleman called Ray. He would like to know what were your experiences of working with Ridley Scott on Legend?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Also, Ray asks, what are your memories of working with Ridley Scott on Legend?
Oh, he was wonderful to work with at the time, and I didn't know any better. So whenever there was a meeting about the storyboards in my office, because they're all pinned around the wall, like I arrogantly got them around here, he would talk with the producer and the production designer, and I would chip in all the time and say, well, why don't we do this, or why don't we do that? And he very kindly would listen to me, and not that it made any difference, they did what they wanted to do anyway, but I was most appreciative that he included me all the time. He was fun to work with, he was interesting, and he was knowledgeable, and he was interested in my work as well. So it was an enjoyable experience. The one thing I remember about that, he used to make me come to his office quite a few times, and we'd watch the beginning of Indiana Jones, the first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and we'd watch the beginning credit sequence time and time again, and because he wanted to imitate or copy the beats of that particular scene with the credit sequence of Legend. I don't know now in retrospect whether he managed to do that or not, but he was very keen on doing that at the time.
Oh, absolutely. I want to mention Indiana Jones briefly, but as we're on the Smallville scene, there was obviously lots of cuts made to this film. 45 minutes of footage that was in the original cut was cut by Warner Brothers. One of the scenes that was taken out was of Clark visiting his parents' grave. Did you do storyboards for little sequences like that?
I storyboarded this sequence that we're showing now with the ball being shot and hit into space. And I storyboarded this. I have none of the storyboards I did on this film at all. I don't know why I don't, but I don't. I did this sequence too.
Because obviously we've currently, one scene deleted so far is him visiting his parents' graves, but just after he hurls the baseball into space, there was a scene where there's a flashback to Krypton, and he remembers the planet getting destroyed and him sent off as in his spaceship. And I believe you storyboarded for that deleted sequence. I don't know if that rings a bell to you.
It doesn't. I'm sure it does ring a bell, but if I just keep on, but I'm no, not to my recollection.
Oh, that's
okay. He sadly.
Yeah. So obviously now we're with Gene Hackman in the quarry sequence. I believe this was originally supposed to be like a chain gang in a swamp, sort of swampy area in I meant somewhere sort of middle America.
Yes.
Again, with your view, I assume that a lot of the storyboards you might have done would have been quite different from what actually appeared on screen, because obviously the money not being where it was.
I think I did them as a chain gang doing it, and I have a feeling I had one of the guards on a horse with a gun. But that all went out the window, but it showed the basic thrust of the scene.
Yeah. Do you remember working with? Did you encounter John Cryer at all on the picture?
Sorry.
Did you meet John Cryer at all, who plays Lenny in this?
No, I don't think I did. I mean, I must have done, but I don't remember, I'm afraid. I am an old person. I'm an old person with no recollection and no hearing.
Well, of course, it is sort of almost, well, over 30 years now, isn't it? So I would struggle to tell you what I did at work last year, so let alone 30 odd years ago. So that's fair enough. I should go to another question. How much involvement did you have with Christopher Reeve, and did he have an input in your storyboards? And that comes from a gentleman called Lee.
I didn't actually have an input. He would come and look over my shoulder, and he would say, "That's very nice," and pleasant things like that. And I remember I took my son on set with him, and he met Chris, who was in his Superman costume, and I remember my son just gaping in wonder at the time, but he still remembers it as one of a great day. So
yeah.
he was a very pleasant and approachable man.
Well, that's lovely to know. So obviously now we're on the subway sequence, which obviously, if they hadn't had a budget, obviously would have been the New York subway, but it's actually a disused London Underground station.
I mean, it's clearly the London Underground, isn't it? That's no way could it be in an American city. But
no
still,
way to find it, is there? So is this one of the sequences where perhaps the storyboards would have been very different to what was actually on screen?
I storyboarded the interior of her screaming and all that, and then I did that. Yes, I did that. I storyboarded a huge amount of the film, but as I say, they've all disappeared. Yes, I drew that. I remember that.
Because the one thing I've read about this particular sequence is that it was originally conceived as Superman going a longer chase for the trains coming the other way, having to miss trains, going different tunnels, meeting, really quite much more of a more resembling sort of Superman trying to stop the missile in Superman 1, much more of a struggle.
Well, you know more than I. Then I don't. I bow to your knowledge.
Oh, thank you. I think a lot of it was simplified as the pennies ran out, I think. Just go to another question. Jesse has asked, how do you feel about the final movie? So perhaps compared to what you thought it would be, and then what you saw.
At the time, I didn't really care, but it's I guess it's a passable movie. But the American critics, when it first came out, said it was probably the worst film ever made. Which and I joke with my friends, it was the greatest film ever made. But to make it about 6 or 7 years after the original Superman film on the same budget, and then have some of that budget taken away, I suppose it's not a bad effort. But
no, not at all. No.
And it was done really by film terms on a shoestring.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously the film we're seeing now is just 89 minutes long, but of course the original director's version was 134 minutes, and those 45 minutes were cut out.
Well, there was a large sequence featuring Clive Mantel, who played the first Nuclear Man, when Lex Luthor didn't make him properly, and he was a buffoon, basically, the Nuclear one. And I had a hand in directing that sequence, which luckily landed on the cutting room floor. Not luckily for Clive Mantel, but nevertheless, he was a very funny man, and still is.
Yeah, it's a nice chap. I've met him a few times. He's a lovely guy. So just that brings us nicely onto the deleted Nuclear Man 1 scenes. When you say you had a hand in directing Clive Mantle stuff? Was it would Gene?
All I did was storyboard the sequence and then carry my storyboards onto the set with him and say, this is what we're going to do. And we tried to do it.
Yeah. Would that have been the interior of the dance clubs, or would it have been the scenes in the Lex Luthor's apartment?
Sorry, again, I missed that.
Also, I was wondering whether you have memories of the nightclub sequence with Clive Mantle. So when they're on the dance floor, and then obviously subsequently the fight afterwards.
No, the sequence I did was when he's trying to pick up cars and throw them around outside the Metropolis, the Daily Planet building. Yes, I mean, as I say, he was most amusing in doing it, but that's all I can remember, I'm afraid, about that.
It's okay, because I don't know if you've had a chance yet to look on the DVD, but there is obviously quite a few deleted scenes from the film, and one of the scenes is that nightclub battle. So it is there for us to see. Although it's in a very rough version, and some of the elements that were shot of Superman, of Nuclear Man throwing a skip at Superman, that's not in the scene for some reason. But I believe that was something that was in your storyboard, so it must have been shot.
Well, yeah, okay.
So I just think what else we've got really.
There were just lots of versions of everything, really.
So I was having a look at your couple of your storyboards, and this is a question that comes from Martin L. And Martin would like to know your Nuclear Man storyboards. I think I sent you a couple that he very kindly sent to me, and he said that your version of Nuclear Man seems to be, he described it as sort of like a non-specific entity. Perhaps was there a desire to make Nuclear Man a CG character or a visual effects character?
What do you mean? The storyboards to make Nuclear Man look like he actually did look in the film?
Yes, because obviously your version.
Yes. Well, I mean, a lot of the Nuclear Man sequences I'd boarded before he was even cast, so I'd made him up. I seem to remember I made him a bit like a Silver Surfer. I can't quite remember, and I actually would have made it look like him if I'd had more time and gone back over them or whatever. But time was the element again in the film.
Oh yeah. And what was your reaction when Mark Pillow was revealed as Nuclear Man? Was that different to what you would have liked?
I don't remember any reaction. Probably yuck. I have no idea. What I mean, the storyboards were used as they should have been. You know, they were just used as an indication of what any particular sequence was going to be made. Yeah.
So you always have in your mind that what you do is kind of a guide, so you're not too protective if what is actually done it differs too much from what you do.
Sometimes it's exactly what I've done, and most times it's not. The storyboards are just a guide.
I did have another question from Martin. When were you aware that there was money issues, there was budget cuts, and did you alter your work a little bit, to the fact that you weren't going to be able to do these massively big budget sequences?
No, it never occurred to me, frankly. I was young and callow, and I just was doing what I was told and what I'd been asked to do, and I was very flattered I'd been asked to do all these different things, and vaguely thinking that I probably was good enough to do them, and I frankly wasn't, but never mind. Sid didn't care, so I had a good go at minor directing, and I had a good go at directing miniatures, and I had a good go at doing the matte painting and shooting it, but really, the only thing I was any good at was storyboards, and that's questionable as well. But
Not at all,
um,
Martin. Still.
I had no idea about the budget in those days. No.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we'll get to your matte paintings and miniatures as the film progresses. Perhaps this might be a good point to ask another question from Ray. He wants to know what your memories of Menheim Golan and Joram Globus, the Canon producers.
So I missed the end of that.
Oh, sorry. Do you have any memories of Menheim Golan and Joram Globus, the Canon cousins in charge of Canon Pictures?
Still didn't get it. Sorry.
So do you remember the cousins from Canon Films that were producing the? Did you meet the producers of Superman 4?
Oh yes, I mean I met the producers. I met the cousins of Canon Films, and I eventually met Mr. Pillow, who played. Was his name Pillow? Was it?
Yes, Mark Pillow. Yes.
Yes, who played Nuclear Man, and I met Gene Hackman quite a lot. We used to speak. He was a keen artist, and he used to love talking about art, and showed me photos of his paintings, which were really good.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, Christopher used to come around a lot, and it was actually a very enjoyable experience. Although I was up to my eyes in work, I was still doing daily strip cartoon in the Daily Mirror, and so I was doing an 8-day week basically.
Mm-hmm. So Superman to you was perhaps just another project you had, rather than, let's say, being or I'm on a Superman movie sort of thing.
Well, I was actually very, very on the point of giving up drawing Garth in the Daily Mirror, because I was finding the workload a bit severe, and but the strips editor of the Daily Mirror persuaded me not to give it up, which I'm eternally grateful to him for. And I took it as a sign that when I actually met Mr. Pillow playing Nuclear Man, that he looked a little bit like Garth. And so I thought this was a sign from heaven that I should continue doing Garth.
Oh, absolutely.
This is what on the screen now. I supervised the shooting of this, and that's a tiny little matte painting, and then a hole scraped in the glass, and the film miniaturized. Mm-hmm. That is a terrible suit, isn't it? What a terrible color that blue is. So poor Chris suffered from skin complaint caused by it, sort of Velcro or something.
So are you looking at the Fortress of Solitude now?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I think I've gone slightly behind, probably because my technical issues. So yes, so that would be one of your matte paintings.
I'm afraid so.
And I think it's very effective. I mean, the only thing that lets it down perhaps is the final composite. Just means that the console that Christopher Reeve is working is wobbling a little bit in the picture, but obviously that's obviously nothing to do with your work. Because obviously on a film with a budget like this, your matte paintings like yours really save the day in many respects.
I can't answer that really.
So I think what next to ask you, Lee. Yes. Lee also asks, did you spend any time with the cast or crew off set? Any sort of?
Only as I just mentioned, I used to hang out with Gene Hackman a bit, and as I said, Chris used to come into into my office and talk to me, looking over my shoulder at what I was doing. And then he talked to me quite a bit about the sequence he wanted to shoot, which was the fight sequence on the moon.
Oh, yes.
Apart from that, no, I didn't. I was quite friendly with Margot Kidder, because she was a friend. She was a joint friend of a mutual friend of mine. Mm-hmm. So I made myself known to her, but no, not really. That's the answer. But I used to hang out, of course, with the art department. who in those days were very sociable.
I think you shared me.
This sequence coming up now, I'm afraid, was my idea, and I did storyboards for it, and it's just awful.
Well, I was just about to say it. This
And I drew this umpteen times. I don't know why. Presumably because Sid wasn't happy with the way it looked and the various beats of the sequence. But
because this flight with Lois that we're about to see, this wasn't in the original script. This was something I think that Christopher Reeve had an idea to sort of so sort of quite a last minute thing, and therefore obviously was that sort of difficult to construct given the time to do it.
Yes, I'm just looking at it. The lighting is so weird, isn't it? But
yes,
I mean, for the time it was made, I guess it's not bad. But
well, obviously, this is where a proper budget would have really helped, a sequence like this, but it does, as you say, the performances are very good, so it sort of does sort of just about hold together.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots they could have done when they shot those scenes, really, to make it a little better, but
because again, on the DVD, there's an extended version of this scene as well. So
it was at this during this shooting this sequence that I took my son to see him, funnily enough.
Oh right, yeah. Because I think one of the reasons why, again, the effects, because some effects in the film are very good, some are not so, and then some are really, really bad. And I think one of the reasons for that was they used quite a few effects houses in England to get the effects sort of done, and some of them returned work that wasn't up to scratch. But of course, by that point, the film needed to be released, so they couldn't go back and do them. So that's why you get a bit of inconsistency, I think, with the
and Sid asked me to think up all the round the world chase with Nuclear Man, and I thought up various things, and you'll see it coming up there. The Chinese Wall and the volcano. There was a sequence I did with a ship that was sinking, and Superman rescues it because Nuclear Man tries to sink it, but that didn't appear. But I thought up the whole sequence, and Sid bought it, and it was it was cringing, cringe making.
Well, again, I think the concept is very good, but again, the money wasn't obviously there.
No, quite. So in a sense, it was sort of quite fun, I suppose, because it was in a way sort of amateur, being knocked together for the cheapest amount of money. But again, I was rather ignorant of budgets in those days, and I just thought that's what the film was. And I had the arrogance to think that he was asking me to do all these things because he thought I was good, but it wasn't, because I was cheap.
Would you say that Sidney Furie was a good choice to direct a film like Superman?
I honestly don't know. I think he was. I may be wrong. As I say, he was very pleasant, and he was determined to shoot it on time and on budget. So when we did matte paintings, which were just tests, we'd take the test and show it to him, and he'd say, cut it into the final print. And they were just tests, but it seemed to work. They've been carefully edited.
Did you have anything to do with editor John Shirley? Did you know much of John?
Yes, I did at the time, but I can't remember, to tell you the truth, very much of them, the meetings I had with him. This was all shot at Milton Keynes.
Oh yes, yeah. I think it's become a place.
I remember there was a terrific row when we were recceing this as a location, Sid did lose his rag with the locations manager at that time.
Yeah. Is that obviously because
Over what, I have no idea. So.
Yeah, because obviously originally they wanted to desperately go to New York to do this outside the real United Nations. So, well, I suppose you would have liked to perhaps done a matte painting of New York or something to enhance the sequence.
Yes, there was a matte painting which actually above this, it went above, right up the ceiling for a tilt down from down to him, but it never saw the light of day.
Oh, that's a shame, because that really would have enhanced it quite considerably, I think.
It probably didn't see the light of day because it was such an awful painting.
I'm sure it's not true. Gabriel has asked, and again we sort of touched on it a little bit, but did you have much to do with screenwriters Lawrence Connor and Mark Rosenthal?
No, I don't think I even met them. I might have done, but I don't remember it. That's a horrible color blue, isn't it, that he's wearing?
Yeah, I think again that I believe that the people who did Superman suits for Superman 1, 2, and 3 didn't. I think they did the ones for 4, but I think the fabric that they used didn't exist by the time by 86. I think they had to use a different fabric, and again because they're using blue screen for the effects rather than back projection or front projection, they made the suit slightly off the color that
yes.
should be. So
I think I firmly believe that another reason was, as I say, it caused terrible rash on poor Christopher, and so I think they did try various materials which would agree with his body more.
Right. Because what did you find it quite strange that you were asked to sort of plan sequences like the fight around the world? Because would you have thought that the screenwriters would have been the ones to do?
You would have done. I mean, I don't know to this day why Sid asked me, and I remember I got sheets of A2 sheets and did sort of the key paint from each sequence, and I did them in full color, showing this whole sequence and various things that could be done. And he bought most of them, which was rather silly of him, but it was fun when I did it.
Hmm.
I mean, this is so pony, isn't it?
I mean, did you so you said obviously you were on set for things like the Clyde Mantle scenes, obviously the Daily Planet. Do you have any other memories of being on set that you haven't already shared?
So again, I missed it again. You're breaking up.
Sorry, I was wondering whether you had any further memories of being on set on the film that you haven't already mentioned.
No, I remember this set. It was a beautiful set drawn by Les Tompkins. It was just fabulous, and it was probably a lot of money was spent on this set. It was excellent, though.
Do you have any in particular memories of Leslie Tompkins?
Yes. I mean, he's been a long-standing buddy in films. He's only just recently retired. Very, very good art director. Very good. I think he was supervising on that film. But he designed the whole of Lex Luthor's lair, and I was very impressed at the time. I still am impressed, actually. It still looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you remember set decorator Peter Young?
Yes, of course. I knew Peter very well.
Because he was one of the few people that worked on all 4 Superman films.
Yeah. And also the so-called decor artist, Bob Walker. He was a very talented man. He used to work on all of them.
Just again, going back to some of the crew members that you would have worked with, I was just wondering what Peter Ellenshaw was like.
Peter Ellenshaw.
Yes.
Well, Harrison, I think Harrison suggested to Sid that I should do some matte painting. And then because Harrison knew that I wasn't very au fait with doing it, he brought his father out of retirement, got him over from America. And Peter Ellenshaw was really a very well-known, famous matte painter. He did Spartacus, for instance, and such films. And he was exceedingly nice, and he was very kind to me. And there was one particular matte painting I was doing, and I was just making a complete hash of it. And he said, don't worry, just remember that the audience will look at the motion. There's going to be someone coming out of the sky, coming down the street. You don't have to worry. The eyes will go to the action. And of course, he was right. But nevertheless, the painting had to be somewhat realistic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I remember him showing me the stuff he did on Spartacus. He painted the whole of the inside of the Colosseum, and he'd drawn hundreds of people, painted hundreds of people on glass. As you know, I suppose you all know that matte paintings are done on glass, and usually about A1 size. And he went and scraped away the paint over little sections of the audience. And then when it was shot, someone behind just waved a piece of paper across so that the crowd was all moving and rippling. Very clever, and it worked.
Oh yeah, very, very clever. Again, some of the deleted footage has a lovely matte painting of Moscow that unfortunately was cut out. So I think a lot of the special effects work ended up on the cutting room floor, sadly, because obviously the budget was 35 million before the cuts, and then it was 17 million.
Yeah.
But of course, all the scenes that were cut, they were finished. So a lot of the money didn't end up on the screen because it was cut out. So
yeah,
which I think makes what we have even more impressive, considering.
I think that last shot of the rocket trundling down was shot at Leavesden, but I'm not sure. It might just be miniature. Because before Leavesden was discovered.
Yeah, I think Leavesden was built for.
But it was just up the road from Bournemouth.
Yeah. Because obviously this film was shot at Elstree Studios, wasn't it? Which Canon Films had just recently purchased. Because I think you were saying that the cousins came to have a look at your storyboards on one visit. Is that correct?
I think Gene Hackman really enjoyed himself.
Yes, but playing the general, yes, I think he did.
Well, it's just an over-the-top role, isn't it? It's just perfect.
Yes, it is. So you always got the sense that everybody was enjoying making the film, despite the behind-the-scenes problems.
Yes, I think a lot of most people on the film did enjoy making it. I think, which is very pleasant.
Did you find with the special effects team, such as Harrison and Peter, did they show any signs of stress given the enormous challenges and the money, or was it all very?
I don't know. I know that this sequence coming up, some of the sets were minute, and the flowing lava, for instance, was pretty awful. I think it was essentially porridge with lights underneath.
Right. Yeah.
I always thought this was a very strange sequence because the guy who rescues the so-called Clark Kent, who can't do anything because he's weak, the guy in charge of the gym was fragile and puny, had no muscles. You'll wait and see him in a minute.
Yeah.
Very bizarre. She was a sweet woman, by the way.
Oh, Mary Hemingway.
Yes.
Yeah. I've got a question from Andrew who wanted to know, do you have a favourite scene from the film?
A favourite scene?
Yes.
Uh,
Or favourite associated memory, perhaps?
look at this guy. He's got hardly any muscles. Let me think. I can't think there is a favourite scene, really. What I really enjoyed drawing the early sequences a lot. And I enjoyed the round the world fighting Nuclear Man. I suppose that's probably my favourite scene because I had most hand in realising it and conceiving it.
Absolutely. One thing that did, a question that Ray has, there was a comic book adaptation of Superman 4. I take it this one's something that you were involved in at all?
Not at all, no.
No.
In fact, I didn't know until you just told me that there was such a book.
Oh yeah, yes, there was. And I think what's quite interesting is that it is based upon the uncut version of the film rather than the shorter one we're looking at now. So,
All right.
which is quite interesting.
Who made it? Was it DC made it or?
Yeah, I think DC would have done it. Yeah.
I wonder who the artist was. You don't happen to know?
I don't happen to know, but I will let you know. I'll look it up for you, Martin.
Okay.
I've got quite a good question here from Gabriel. He wanted to know what is there a difference in artistic approach when you're drawing storyboards for a comic book versus a more serious traditional film?
Is there more greater budget? Did he say?
So I was saying, is there a difference in how you would do storyboards for an action comic book film?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you have far more freedom if you're doing a graphic novel or a strip cartoon of it. You can cross the line, as they say, and you can adopt really strange and quirky angles, which most film directors wouldn't countenance. So, yes, I mean, it's a different discipline, but it's very similar. Does that answer the question or not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Would you find it more fun to work on something like this, or because you say you have more freedom on a project like this?
Well, you see, I was basking, if you like, in both worlds at the time. I was creating Garth and making him do what I liked, and writing him and drawing him, and having complete freedom of what he looked like and what he did, and having at the same time I had to be disciplined and do what the director and the script wanted for the film. So I had the benefit of both worlds. So cheating a bit, but most enjoyable, because I didn't really yearn for one or the other.
Yeah.
Except, as I said, I was thinking about giving up Garth just because of the workload.
Oh, absolutely. I was just wondering, again, I think we have again, might be a question from. I just wonder, when did you first see the final film? Would it have been at the premiere or a studio screening?
No, I mean, we storyboard artists hardly ever go to the premiere unless you're in the director's very good books. I don't remember if there was a premiere in England. I presume there was. No, you go to what's known as a crew showing, which is self-explanatory. All the crew are invited to usually a West End cinema at the crack of dawn on a Sunday to watch the film that they worked on.
I don't know if you probably may not be able to recall, but when you saw it at one of those screenings, would it have been this version we're seeing now, or would it have been the longer version that you would have saw?
I'm sorry, I can't remember, but I would imagine it's roughly what we're watching now. It certainly was a properly cut version. It wasn't sort of outtakes and all that.
It wasn't a rough assembly sort of thing.
You know, it was basically the final print.
Okay. Again,
there was one other storyboard artist called Michael White, and really he was just an art director, but he fancied himself doing a sequence, and he drew this particular sequence we're looking at now.
All right.
Yeah. That sounds derogatory. I didn't mean he fancied himself. He was a storyboard artist, but he usually was an art director and drew up sets, etc.
I'm just checking on the same scene, Martin. Are you with Hemingway and Margaret Kidder at the moment? Are they on screen?
Sorry?
So I'm just saying what sequence you're watching now, just making sure we're still in sync.
This is a sequence that Michael did. I think it's meant to be, I think it's a funny sequence, isn't it? It's meant to be.
Oh, yes, the double date, yes.
Yeah. A bit sort of slapstick, isn't it?
Oh,
sort
yeah.
In one dorm, out the other, and all that.
I think of all the scenes in the film, this is certainly one that people do really enjoy. I think it's quite a nicely done sequence.
I can't answer that. I don't think I can answer that.
Going back to the film's cast, do you remember Jackie Cooper?
Very, very vaguely. You've got to remember it's a long time ago.
Oh yeah, yes, and obviously just in any sort of
and I was very young. By the standards I am now, that is very young.
So you would have been in mid-30s, sort of 40 or
40s, I think.
40s.
I don't know, how many years ago was it?
Say 87, so shooting in 86, so that's 35, 36 years ago.
Yeah, that's probably about 40.
Yeah. I mean, had you seen the original Superman films up to this point, when you came on board it?
Had I seen it before, you mean?
Yeah. So would you, when you were working on this film, were you aware of the other Superman films? Would you have seen those?
I'd seen Superman 1, the very first one. I don't think I'd seen the others. I'd seen Superman 2. I'm trying to place where that was.
Yeah, I think this was somewhere Milton Keynes as well, I believe.
Yeah, could well be.
Because I think a lot of
quite a lot of it was actually shot at Bournemouth Studios. I mean, they used the gates for the gates of the boys' prison.
Yes, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I can't get over the blue color.
Yes.
he was a nice man.
Yeah, everyone I've talked to always who worked with him have always said the same, that he was a you know, sometimes when you meet your heroes, they're not quite the people you think they
No,
are. They did say
he wasn't grand in any way.
Yeah. I think he always said that he found Clark Kent quite easy to play because it was, I think he perhaps was a bit on the inside, a bit nervous and a bit sort of
Yes. These are lengthy sequences, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, when you were doing a bit of directing on this, were you aware that you had to do it very, very quickly, or I suppose because you hadn't done it before, you weren't aware that it was sort of done on the fly, as it were?
Well, in theory, we all storyboard artists have to work quickly, but and it's very rare when you don't have to, when you can take your time. So yes, I mean, time was of the essence.
And we did have a question from Gabriel, who wanted to know, what do you think of the more recent Superman movies and the comic book movies in general that we seem to have?
Well, I mean, they're totally different kettle of fish, aren't they? Because with the advent of CG and decent digital compositing, it's you can make things look very realistic. It's almost a different genre altogether.
Oh yes, yeah.
I mean, if Labyrinth was made again, it could be really quite something.
I mean, would you say that you've enjoyed working on films as much as you do today as you did before? Do you think in any way filmmaking's lost in your games?
It's not as enjoyable, I hate to say, in the studios working anymore, as people are all engrossed in their own little world and their screen. In the days when I first started, there were no computers to work with, so everyone in the art department used to joke with each other all the time. It was a hubbub of noise most of the time. It was very, very enjoyable. Everyone took the piss out of everybody else. And I remember one particular art director went out to lunch at Boreham Wood. When he came back, all his set squares and drawing implements had been stuck to the ceiling. It was that sort of thing. I remember when I had to have a serious conversation with Sid Fury, the construction manager, Terry Apsey, and one of his mates put a call through to my office and connected it to one of those sex chat lines, and I answered it, and they were watching through the glass to see how I was going to react when I was trying to talk to Sid at the same time. Things like that were done all the time. It was fabulous.
That sounds nice, yes. And
as I say, nowadays it doesn't happen so much because people don't talk so much to each other, and there's far more discipline in the studios. The studios are far more aware of security and how people should behave, and sexual harassment and no bullying and sorry.
So do you find that the way you do storyboards now is different to how you did them before in terms of?
Yes, of course, because I used to draw them with a pencil or charcoal on paper, and then I was a slave to a photocopier, and if it was a good photocopier, I'd get decent copies, and all the crew would get their little pile of storyboards, and they all look reasonable. And if there was a bad photocopier, like I remember on Tomorrow Never Dies, was just a hideous photocopier, and so it didn't record tone or anything, and everything blotted. So no, it's horrible. Nowadays we all work with a computer one way or another. Most of my colleagues, I think, work digitally actually on the computer now. I'm sort of half and half. and 2 or 3 of my colleagues I know still work half and half. I you draw it with pencil, scan it in, and then you render it in Photoshop.
Mhm. So
Am
many
I
of us-
answering your questions correctly?
Oh, absolutely. Very well, Martin. We're enjoying ourselves immensely, I'm sure. So you would say that, because obviously I think we discussed amongst ourselves, talking about the fact that a lot of directors tend to rely on previs, on computer generated versions of sequences, and obviously, you know,
Yeah, this was really quite a tiny set.
because it was quite a good matte painting earlier on with the New York background, but for some reason you don't see it in a lot of the shots. Because that was
Have you had the volcano yet?
no, we're coming up to that one in a few minutes.
Yes, we're about to get that. There's a terrible matte painting of the volcano, which I did. There were 2 actually, but the worst one they've managed to edit out.
I know the screenwriters had conceived of Nuclear Man as being a character that could change shape, could become, well, obviously in a deleted scene, he becomes a missile, and also he grows into, you know, like a giant figure. Would any of your storyboards reflected Nuclear Man sort of changing, or was he always kind of like a static humanoid character?
Here we go. Sorry, that's the painting I did, and that's the painting I did. Cringe, cringe. And funny enough, that's the only painting I've got. This was a really, really tiny set. And as I say, this is the porridge coming down.
So going to the Great Wall of China, obviously, I think you told me last time, I think that in your storyboards, he does repair the wall, but in the final sequence, he just sort of looks at it and repairs it. I think that again was something that changed a bit from your conception.
Yeah. That's another matte painting I did of the background. But, oh dear. Yes. What a great miracle. It was nothing. Have a nice day.
One of the good things about this film is that Superman is seen as not just an American figure. He's talking Italian, he's talking Russian at the beginning of the film, so he seems to be a character that not just an American, propaganda character as perhaps he was many years ago.
Yes.
I think that was something that Christopher Reeve was quite keen on doing.
Yes, I mean, Christopher was quite instrumental in the basic premise of the film. This was a tiny, tiny set too. This little bottom corner of Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
And this, to my shame, was my idea. Again, Sid bought it.
Oh, what? Dropping the Statue of Liberty.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he just asked me to think of all the things when they chase around the world that could happen. As I say, there was a ship, sort of like the Queen Mary.
Yeah.
And that's nowhere to be seen.
So would that have been filmed? Would that have been cut?
No, it wouldn't have been. No, it was cut. It was cut before. I mean, they decided not to do it.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, Harrison Ellenshaw for visual effects did a bloody good job, considering, again, with no budget worth talking about.
They did. I mean, there's more special effects shots, I think, in this film than there was in any other of the previous Superman films, maybe even put together.
Yeah.
So to do it on that budget,
Yes.
and the time, of course, as well.
We became really quite good friends at the time, Harrison and I. We used to go to dinner a lot in the evenings. And he was very keen on me going back to LA with him.
Yeah.
To do matte paintings and storyboards. But I was too obsessed with Garth and my family that I didn't go. And the rotoscoping of all this wire work was incredible.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I think one of the benefits of Superman 1 and 2 was that it was lit in quite a soft focus, so it made wire removal and rotoscoping it, a bit easier. But this film is shot very much, like a traditional sort of, dramatic piece, or not really. So I think that there's nowhere to hide in the way it's been photographed.
Yeah. Here's another nice guy. I mean, everyone was nice. Sam Wanamaker, he was terrific. Are people still here watching, or have they all gone home?
No, they're still with us. Yeah, we're still here. So Sam was quite nice to meet and talk to. It sounds like. I mean, I think we spoke. We were saying when the cousins from Cannon visited the set, they didn't seem particularly interested. Is that your recollection? Sorry, Martin. I was just saying, Martin. Do you remember the cousins from Cannon visiting the set and what they were like?
Not really, I'm afraid. I do remember that the sets themselves most of them were very tiny. Except, as I say, Les Tompkins' Lex Luthor set was where a lot of the money went, I think. And John Graysmark did a good job, I think, and with his art directors.
So you didn't find that the producers were particularly hands-on? They were kind of perhaps not too interested in the
Not
film?
to my knowledge, because I wasn't privy to that sort of exposure. I'm a toiler at the face rather than one of the main characters, I'm afraid. I haven't had any questions from Dave Alcock or from Stephen Forrest Smith.
Oh well, if I'm sure, well, see that they're still online. So
their questions will probably be, "Why are you such a prat?" And there is no real answer to that.
Yeah. Steve says he's still here. Yeah. If you've got any questions, Steve or David, please send them through the chat, and I'll pass them on.
They haven't fallen asleep yet.
Oh yes, Steve's asked, what are the storyboards behind you? Which film was? Which
I'm
film?
afraid they look terribly, terribly big-headed and sanctimonious, and I'm afraid that they're a product of my laziness. There was a program on the One Show when Phil Tufnell came here for a 10-minute slot in the program to talk about storyboards, and they asked me before he came that I should put some boards on my wall so that he could talk about them, which he did, and ever since then I left them there and didn't take them down, I'm afraid. It's slightly better than the rather shabby wallpaper, so I'm afraid that I apologize. It does look very me, which of course is true.
Well, I think they're lovely. I mean, if you're good at something, by all means, show it off. So it's very nice to see them. I have another question come in from Martin. Did you do the opening credits after the cuts had been made to the film, or did you have to cut the credits? Because obviously some people, like Clive Mantle, they don't have a credit on the titles.
I did see once a print which did say that I supervised the credit sequence, but that's long gone, I'm afraid. I'm not sure whether I understand the question.
Oh no, I was just saying that because obviously the credits on the front of the film, Clive Mantle obviously isn't on the credits, so you would have done.
Oh, he's not. Right? Is he not? I did not know that. No.
Yeah. So I assume you would have done those quite late in the day.
But I mean, his entry in the film was not minor, but I suppose it should have been. In those days, credits came first. Yes, he should have been there.
Yeah, yeah. So it looks like they edited his credit out probably later on, sort of thing.
Yes. I'm not sure whether he's got credit here at the end of the film. I've got a sneaking suspicion he has, but I may be wrong.
Oh, we'll have a little look. Like I don't recall seeing his name before, but we'll have a little look. Did you do the end credits as well, or just the opening ones?
Sorry, I got carried away with watching the film.
That's right. I was just saying, did you do the end credits, or was it just the opening ones that you were tasked with?
I think it was just the opening one. I mean, Harrison was the one who said yes to it, really.
Yeah. I've just got a
feeling Harrison may have been going back to America at that point. I can't quite remember.
I've just got quite an exciting thing come up in the chat that Harrison Ellenshaw is trying to join the Zoom. So I'm just going to see.
Excellent.
So I'll just see if he can.
He would know far more than I do.
Okay, we'll just see if we can.
That scene where Nuclear Man comes down, that was a matte painting, which was meant to be a tilt down from the planet building, but that's where the actual buildings on Boreham Wood finished. So I had to add the bit at the top, and that's when Peter told me they'll only see Nuclear Man coming in the sky. It won't look at the matte painting. And I did some terrible paintings of cars, but luckily they were all cut out.
Because one of the bits of the film that was shot but cut from this fight sequence was when Nuclear Man elevates a couple of taxis, and Superman flies up, brings the taxis down, and there's an old lady in the taxi who says, "Well, how much do I owe you, young man, for the for getting her down," sort of thing. That was a cute little. And again, your storyboards have that moment, but we haven't seen the footage as yet.
Oh, okay. And this was an area on the lot at Boreham Wood, but, which probably doesn't exist anymore. it was there that the sequence with Clive Mantle was shot as well.
Yes, because that was done at the night, wasn't it? And then, of course, this is the same thing
Yeah.
in daytime.
Has Harrison managed to join?
I'm not sure. I don't think yet, but we're trying to get him in.
And I mean, what time is it in America? For goodness sake. Oh, it's just early in the morning, isn't it? So that's fine.
Yeah. I've got another question from Steve Morton. In terms of new skills you've achieved on Superman 4, like matte paintings, is this something you continue to do, or do you just want to do more storyboarding? So
I really didn't enjoy my experience as a matte painter, partly because I was crap, but I found it difficult and not as rewarding as doing storyboards. And I much prefer to draw than to paint anyway. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh yes, yes.
Now we're coming up to a sequence that Christopher directed.
So again, he had obviously some input in your storyboards for this sequence, I take it.
Yes, I did do this whole sequence. I guess that's a miniature, but
Got a nice comment from Martin Lakin. It's just come in. He says, please tell Martin he's being too modest about the matte paintings. The volcano one is particularly awesome. So he seemed to like it, so which we all do.
that's very kind. I like this touch of him straightening the flag, but when it gets used in the fight and he puts it back, I think he should have straightened it again. It would have been a nice little touch, I'd have thought.
I think he does a bit later on. I think he does do that, but I think we'll come to it in a bit. But yeah, it's a nice little.
I mean, you may be right.
Because again, it's quite a good sequence, really, isn't it? I mean, I know occasionally you see the black curtain around the set, but generally speaking, it's quite well done.
What was his name? Steve Pillar, was it, or what?
Mark Pillow. Mark Pillow.
Mark Pillar, yeah. I mean, I think he was pretty good, actually. And you told me the other day he was in a couple more films after this.
Yeah, I think he did I think he did a guest on a TV episode of some series, and I think it's his only film credit. So I think he got 2 screen credits in total, and then I think he retired. Well, I think he I think he started ran a vineyard, brought up his family, and just probably didn't want to continue with the film business. I don't think that's anything to do with this film or anything, but I just think it perhaps wasn't for him.
But you can see that facially and body-wise, he was he would have made quite a good Garth.
Yes, I see those resemblance. Yeah.
I think Chris enjoyed directing this. poor Harrison, he really had his work cut out, didn't he?
Oh yes, definitely. And again, I think he was one of perhaps the people that got unfairly criticised when the film came out. And of course, it was nothing to do with. Of course, it wasn't his fault. Didn't have the money to play with.
There, he just puts it up. He doesn't adjust it, does he? If he just adjusted it, it would have been.
Yeah, it was nice because nice to have a little
I'm
shot.
sure he probably did, and they.
Yeah. They must have cut it out, I think.
When we first started the film, and it was crewing up, it was at Pinewood.
Yes.
And at some point we moved to Boreham Wood. I'm not sure when Harrison joined us, whether he was in the wings waiting to come from LA or whether he joined us after we got to Boreham Wood.
Because obviously, once Pinewood was lost as a location, I think that's when a lot of the original artists that worked on Superman 1, 2, and 3 would have.
That was Didcot Power Station.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which doesn't exist anymore.
And a lot of things have changed, haven't they? I think a lot of Elstree's, where the lots on Elstree, I think a lot of it's now was bought by Tesco many years ago, and I think Tesco stands where a lot of the Superman 4 sets were back in '86.
Really? I presume this is Milton Keynes again, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And I think a lot of the Milton Keynes locations were literally just a few yards from each other, really, all very close together.
I mean, Milton Keynes was quite new then. I mean, trying to get on the map. I was very happy to make the film there, I think.
Well, I think it's quite ingenious to come up with the idea to use Milton Keynes, really, because there's not many other places you could have really filmed it to get away with it being, New York.
Yes, it seems to cut together quite well, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
As long as you keep the shots like this, nice and tight.
Did you mention earlier that you still had a bit of artwork from this film?
Only the volcano painting. But I haven't, I can't think that I have any other boards at all.
I think a lot of people would probably maybe like to see your volcano painting if we could perhaps sort of maybe have a look at it at some point. If you can.
To my shame, I've used most of it as a ramp for my cat to get in and out the cat flap, but I'm sure I could take the wood off it so you can see it.
Oh, that'd be lovely. If you were to send a picture, I could then send it to the attendees later on. That would be really nice.
Say again, sorry.
I could always send a picture of it to the attendees later. I could email them a picture of it, so I'm sure they'd appreciate that.
This is the end, isn't it?
Yeah, I think pretty close.
This is the M1, of course.
because obviously originally the ending to this film was quite different, with Superman and Jeremy talking to the people of the world flying out in space. Did you remember storyboarding the original end for the film?
There was a different beginning. Yes, you're right, and I don't remember. I think I may well have storyboarded it. Yes, I did sort of storyboard an awful lot. Again, it's very vague. Sorry, I do apologize.
That's quite all right.
This was very close to Boreham Wood.
Because Cannon did have the idea of making Superman 5 with the deleted footage from this film as sort of like a base. Did you ever hear any rumblings of a sequel to this? Or?
No, I didn't. Now we may see whether Clive Mantle gets a credit or not.
Yes. No, I think he'd be higher up if he was going to get one. No.
Doesn't look like it, does it?
No, that was a huge shame, really, that he was, because I think it was one of his first
forays into films.
Yeah, and I talked to him a while ago, and he was saying that that he didn't realize he was cut out of the film until his invite for the premiere got cancelled, and he didn't have any idea.
No.
So I think it was quite a sad experience.
What really annoys me is I don't get any storyboard credit, but I did get a very nice conceptual artist credit, and I get a matte painting credit, but I don't get storyboard credit. But,
yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Are there any names here?
Look at those people. So many are no longer with us. It's such a shame.
Oh yes. Do you remember? It's very sad, isn't it? Do you remember John Fenner?
Yes, knew him very well.
Because I think he did quite a few of the Bond films, as I recall.
Yes. Look at all those those rotoscope artists. And the opticals. Look at that. It's fantastic. There, matte artist Martin. Hey, I want cheers all around, please. Very good.
So how would sort of working on a film like this compared to, say, working on the James Bond films, for example?
Every film is different. I don't know what you really want me to say. It's just totally different in those days, as I've said, as it is nowadays. And a lot of people, thanks to COVID, are working from home. And I started working from home about two years ago. The last film I worked in a studio was the Star Wars, The Last Jedi. That's the last film I actually worked full-time in the studios. So, and a lot of my colleagues, of course, because of the current situation, are now all working from home. And I don't see anything wrong with it, because you can Zoom or video or FaceTime your director quite easily, and so it's much easier. And I think probably we all get a bit more work done from home than in the studio.
Oh yes, there's less distractions, I'm guessing. I've got just a message from Martin Lakin. Just says just to let Martin know that copies of his storyboards for Superman 4 still exist, at least for the second half of the film, so they're not entirely lost. So there are copies of your work for this film still out there.
Oh, jolly good. That's very good. I after this, I will go through my so-called archive and see if I do have any left.
Oh yes, the very
And
interesting.
if I do, I will send them to you.
Oh, that's,
I doubt it, I'm afraid.
oh, it's always worth a look, isn't it? But you say it's something so long ago. I mean, of your career, do you have particular storyboards that are very dear to your heart?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I cringe whenever I look at my work. I think probably we all do. It's only when I see my work when it's 6 or 7 years old can I really ascertain and criticize it and know it for what it is.
Hmm.
And since I haven't seen the work I did for Superman 4 for ages, I don't know. It'd be like looking at somebody else's work. So I could be very critical. I expect it's pretty awful.
Oh, I've seen a few bits and pieces, and some of it is, I think, better than what's in the film. So I think it's good work.
I very much doubt it.
Martin Lakin adds that storyboards that do exist from Superman 4, apparently some of them were recovered from an Elstree skip. So somebody saw them in a skip and took them out, and I think they sold them on eBay or something like that. So
Again, they'll probably be just dreadful photocopies. But
yeah, I'm not sure if I doubt the originals probably survived, but it's probably.
I don't know. In those days, the originals were taken away. We weren't allowed to have them, and we still aren't, I suppose. But it's very difficult now when digital work is. You can't. There aren't such a thing as an original with digital storyboards.
Do you miss not having that physical result?
No, I don't, because I always have a physical result. As I say, I tend to draw them first and then scan them in and render them on Photoshop. But then the rendering is as the digital version that's sent to the director and the crew. But the actual originals are mine because they still are just drawings.
Oh, that's lovely. One thing I did want to mention, because we were saying about, when we were talking about Legends, how the opening titles were kind of taken from Raiders of the Lost Ark, because you actually worked on The Last Crusade, didn't you? What was that like with Steven Spielberg?
Well, I was asked to do the last sequence, and because Steven Spielberg needed it storyboarded, and he came from England, and I got in early at Bournemouth and Elstree, and I followed him all day. He went to costume designers, he went to the production designer, and he went to visited the sets. All the time I was trailing after him, keeping my distance because it was nothing to do with me. And eventually he sat in the viewing theatre to see Rushes, and I sat about 2 rows behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And he then turned to me and he said, who are you? And I said, I'm Martin Asbury. I've been asked to storyboard the end sequence. He said, oh, I wondered who you were. You've been following me all day. So he then briefed me, and I did the final sequence of what was it, The Last Crusade?
Yes, Last Crusade, yeah. I just wanted to say that Harrison Ellenshaw is now watching. He's now joined us. I was just
hi, Harrison. Hi.
I was just wondering, Mr. Ellenshaw, whether you'd like to come on screen for a few minutes, because I can promote you to a panelist if you'd like to say hello face to face. I don't know if you would like to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
To respond. Let me see if we can get him on. Hang on, just see if I can. I don't want to do it without his permission, you see, so I'll just see if I can.
Harrison, you must email me, martin@martinasbury.com.
While waiting for Harrison's reply, David Alcock said, ask Martin about the divine dissatisfaction.
Say the question again.
Oh, yeah, so David wants me to ask you about the divine dissatisfaction.
the design dissatisfaction.
Yeah,
Um,
divine satisfaction.
Yes, the divine dissatisfaction. Hopefully, most creative people experience the divine dissatisfaction. That is why you have to do it all over again. And that's why I draw all the time, because I don't like what I did before, and I know I can draw it better. So that is why I draw again and again and again.
Yeah. I'm just going to.
What a very interesting question, will you say, Mr. Alcock? It's a very fascinating question, and shows an internal knowledge of art and creativity.
I'm just going to see if I can send a message to Harrison. Okay, lovely. I think he wants to come on, so I'll just see if I can promote Harrison to an a panelist. Let me just see if I
I
can.
probably won't recognize him. You probably won't recognize me, that's for sure.
Right. So, Mr. Ellenshaw, I'm just about to promote you to a panelist, so hopefully you'll pop up on the screen in a second.
Hey.
Got him. Are you able to? So you're muted, Mr. Ellenshaw. Would you like to unmute? And do you have video? Could you start your video? It should be at the bottom corner on the left.
Who, me or him?
Oh, I'm asking Mr. Ellenshaw to see if he can, because he's muted currently. Oh, yeah, hang on.
Hey.
Hello. You're currently muted.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Ellenshaw.
You know, this gives me chills. What a let's just say that many people have blamed me personally for destroying the Superman franchise.
No, it's my fault.
No, well, I often say, you know, if we just had better conceptual artists.
Oh, absolutely. I wish we had. What a shame.
It's just, I so enjoyed working on that film.
It was fun.
And fourth one, yeah, and everybody says, oh yeah, that's the one with Richard Pryor. I go, no, it's the one after that. And of course the response is, I never saw it. Okay, just as well.
I joke with my friends that Superman 4 is the greatest film ever made. And and I remember you so well, and it's lovely to see you again. And I remember you were staying somewhere near Boreham Wood, and you rang me one evening and you said, what is it with UK television? There's just nothing but billiards and snooker. So you remember, that's all you could see. And in those days, we had about 4 channels.
Yeah. Well, that was an upgrade from the original stuff and aging stuff. Boy, look, can you see this?
Oh, yes, well done. You kept it. That's marvelous.
Yeah,
I wish I'd kept mine.
So many good memories, so many
yes,
crazy times with the director, whatever his name was.
Sid Fury.
Thanks.
I remember one occasion he was taking me to the canteen for lunch, and as he came into my office, he said, do you know that one time a little ago they wanted to take a blood sample from me, and they couldn't get it in my arm, they couldn't get the needle in. And he went on and on as we went and we sat down to dinner. He was still talking about it, and in the end to try this, and he said to me, do you know it still hurts?
Sorry. Oh, what a character. I a little bit obsessive compulsive to say the least. But he was I think he's still around.
Is he really? Wow.
Well, I mean, he was such a hypochondriac,
Yeah.
and he would get on one thing and just flog it to death. It was
That's
going,
right. Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
and I was trying to help him. I don't know why, but he would. So second unit, and getting the flying sequences, and of course the producer.
Listen, we've just seen the film, and you did a bloody good job considering when it was done, what budget you had, and everything. Terrific.
Talk about hands tied. It
Yeah.
was brutal because the Israeli cousins just kept cutting the budget. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 and
I knew
eventually
nothing of that at the time, unfortunately. But,
it was awful. That was the worst part of it. But the best part
Of course.
was going to that great place across the road for lunch. The Italian place.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And
I can't remember now what it was called.
oh gosh, it was so good. And occasionally Chris Reeve would join us, and he was such a sweetheart. Gosh,
He was, wasn't he not?
he was
lovely.
patient. And there are times I'm thinking, oh, this guy's just going to go, hey, you know who I am? But no, never had a harsh word for anybody.
No,
And I listened.
he was one of the nicest men. He really was.
Yes, yeah. And he was perfect.
Yes.
Perfect at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Such a shame what happened to him. It was tragic. But
I wonder. I think he's still around. Nuclear Man.
yes,
The
we're
Chippendale
talking
dancer.
about him earlier.
Yeah. What a great guy. He was so much fun. And,
it was a fun film to work on as far as I was concerned. But
it was.
there are a lot of characters in it and a lot of fun, a lot of laughter.
Oh, a lot of laughter, and having the opportunity, convincing them that I could set up a new facility to do the effects, which was Olson, Lane, and White in Burbank, California. And man, we would have so many giggles because I'd show the effects animators cuts from the movie, and they'd just be rolling on the floor.
Very good.
Yeah.
And at one point, you were trying to persuade me to come back to California with you, if you remember. And I wouldn't, because of the strip cartoon I was drawing in the paper and family and all that. So you don't remember that, do you?
No. But you could. There's a lot of things I don't remember, and
same here.
So some of them I was, I look back and I think, did I really do that? Oh, that was not nice. Oh, geez. So I apologize to those to whom I have, as we say, thrown under the bus.
Well, it's lovely.
I'm very familiar being under the bus because, oh, here's your spot. We've saved it for you.
It's really great seeing you again. And you must email me, or I'll email you. Martin@martinasbury.com. Don't forget.
Okay, Mark.
Martin earlier about the fact, obviously, that the film was drastically cut. Did you ever see the original 134-minute version of the film before it was torn apart?
It's available online if you want to. Boy, that was painful. Well, you know, and it was Warner Brothers that took an axe to it.
Yeah.
I remember Sydney showed it to Terry Semmel, and I think Daly was the other guy. And we had previewed it in Long Beach at a some theater in a shopping center, and handed out cards for people to make comments on, and then would hopefully have focus groups afterwards. I was standing in the back of the theater. Sydney couldn't watch, so he was across the street in a restaurant, and it was like we almost had a riot on our hands because they saw Superman come up. They didn't know what kind of movie they'd be seeing, saw Superman, and the crowd went wild. After about 20 minutes, they started throwing the pencils at the screen, and they're just streaming out of the place. They were so angry. We're trying to say, "Oh no, wait for the." They're going.
There's a better bit coming.
But they were number one. I mean, it was a disaster. And then I had to go across the street and sit down with Sydney. he said, "Oh, so how'd it go? How'd it go?" Let's say the reaction was significant, and I tell you what, why don't we have a drink and talk about our next project together or whatever. It was fun when, so yeah, it was after that Warner Brothers just said, no, you gotta lose this and that, and or they said you have to shorten it. It can't be 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Wow.
And Sydney said, great, no problem. I understand the creative process. And so he said, we'll go back in the editing room. And the Warner Brothers brass said, no, lose 2 reels and we'll tell you which 2. So it was like 6A and 6B gone. No remix, nothing. It just suddenly, boom. Oh, we're at the end.
Wow. Oh my God.
It was great. Oh.
Did you say, Harrison, that the footage still exists somewhere?
Yeah, I can't remember. I discovered it somewhere. If you search the internet, it's there, and it's because we had Nuclear Man 1, which was the gentleman you named earlier, and it was this whole kind of didn't quite do it correctly. So Gene Hackman was wonderful. That was one of the real pleasures. Working with the actor, Gene Hackman stayed off by himself, didn't really, just showed up, put in a performance, nailed it, and went on. He's such a great actor that he can improvise and make it sound real. But I do remember having cut out some stuff. There was a fight around the world, which never quite made sense. And I said to Sydney one time, I said, well, what's the motivation for them fighting around the world? And Sydney went home and said, and comes in the next morning, goes, oh, I've got it. I've got the line. I'm thinking, well, this is going to be interesting. And he goes, Okay. So Nuclear Man says, first I have fun. I mean, this is right after Gene Hackman says, destroy Superman.
Yes.
And then he says, but first I have fun. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, it's just another iceberg. The Titanic is
That's my fault.
going down so fast.
Oh, dear.
Because
That
obviously
was
there is
very
quite
good.
a bit of deleted scenes that are available on DVD and on YouTube. One of the scenes that's not available is the Metro Club dance nightclub sequence. Do you remember that scene at all?
Well, that strikes a bell, but nightclub sequence.
Yeah, because there's a scene where, yeah.
The nightclub where
I don't remember it at all. I mean, I remember the name. I remember it rings a bell, but I
shot at the,
can't remember.
I think it was shot at the Hippodrome, Leicester Square, I believe. It was an
yes,
actual
that's
nightclub.
correct. In fact, we went to scout for the location. I was with Sydney, and I think it was John Gracemark, who's a wonderful guy. And the production manager forgot. Anyway, so we went to this very fancy club, and we were shown to a VIP table.
Yeah.
And had, everything was paid for, and probably one of the most delightful waitresses, wait people that I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, I'm in visual effects. Well, sort of like movies, but not. Okay, here's my card. I didn't do that. I just thought, oh, it doesn't get much better than this. And then the next day we were back at, trying to figure out the sound that the Nuclear Man would make.
Yeah.
And what sound? And so one day, Cindy says, I got it. And, he would have these moments of inspiration. And he said, sizzling bacon. Oh, that's okay. Sizzling bacon. So get the sound guys out there. Let's start cooking some bacon. True story, swear to God.
That's a great story. I never heard that before. Very good.
Yeah. Were you happy with the visual effects work that you did on the deleted footage, and was it a shame to because obviously there was Nuclear Man turning into the missile and all sorts of effects that we've never seen? Were they, were you happy with those, and was it a shame to lose those?
Nah, I wasn't happy with the effects overall. We did, the buck stops here. I could give all sorts of excuses, budget cuts, time, but I also had to make the decision that we didn't have enough money to do front projection as they had in Superman 1 and 2. The flying sequences were wonderful. So, and doing blue screen was difficult because the blue and the yellow on Superman's costume doesn't really work that well. So you have to, and I shouldn't point out the flaws, but what the heck. So on his chest, the logo, the yellow is white.
Yes.
It doesn't have that intensity, but there you go.
Because one of the things that we were talking with Martin about earlier was the fact the Superman suit is a bit off color in the film. I think that was probably to make the blue screen work a bit better.
Yeah. What can I say?
Is there an effect on the film that you were happy with? Are there bits that you are quite happy with overall, or is it kind of all a bit of a disappointment?
What, Martin, what do you think? There's
I think the matte paintings and the storyboards were probably the best.
there were a lot of things. I think the work.
I think you did a very good job, frankly. I mean, you may well be ashamed of it, as I am indeed, but of my work. But the fact remains that it stands up pretty well considering when it was made and the budget you had.
I think so, and the sequences of changing and kind of slapstick thing of changing from Clark Kent into Superman and with the double date was well staged, was brilliantly played, and
Yeah.
I like that kind of stuff.
Yes, they clearly enjoyed doing it, didn't they?
Yeah, and that's another thing that was so lovely. A lot of fond memories.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough being an actor. And every time I've worked on a film, I just am amazed that somebody can pull it off. And I've been fortunate to work on films with some really, really good actors. There's no such thing as a bad actor except in a school play.
Given the budget that you had to work with, was there ever, because obviously originally the budget was a lot higher and then it got cut, was there ever considered to actually scale back the film or cut this out, cut that, or did you, rather than necessarily trying to extend the money on a huge film?
Well, in my view, the producers basically sold Warner Brothers, waltzed them around the ballroom, and then had no intention of making a decent film.
Yeah.
So they took their producer's fee and they were out of there.
Absolutely.
And that to me is shameful. You don't do that.
No.
Come on.
But a lot of it's done today, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
They're just interested in the profits it may make.
well, I don't want to get into
No, quite.
So
a
when you
philosophical.
so when
Film is so special, is so precious, and look, there's a reason Steven Spielberg is Steven Spielberg.
Right.
Because the guy knows where to put the camera.
Yeah.
He just has an instinct for it. And my favorites are obviously Spielberg. Mr. Lucas isn't too shabby. In fact, I watched American Graffiti the other night, and I just sit there and go, "Whoa, how did he do it?" And then there's that Kubrick fellow. So again, I'm just awestruck by those directors, and there's so many of them out there. And unfortunately, because of the business being the way it is, there are a lot out there that aren't very good, and it's okay.
I mean, were you aware, Harrison, of the reputation that the Canon Studios had when they were doing Superman, and were you surprised that DC and Warner's were fooled by them?
Yeah. Well, as I say, they weren't, I'm not quite sure why Warner Brothers did that. And then I think that at one point it got pretty ugly because I had set up Olsen Lane and White and I wasn't getting payroll sent by Globin and Globlus, whatever their names were. They just didn't send checks. And finally they did. And it was sent one for $83,000. And I'm going, finally. And this was phone calls after phone calls. And it was over Christmas. And I thought, I've got to pay these people at Christmas time.
Yeah.
The check bounced.
Oh,
You're
God.
kidding.
Nope. I'll never forgive them.
No.
So an unnamed person came to the rescue and we financed the payroll.
Yes.
And I would have shot those guys. They were just scumbags. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think if somebody had gone to Warner Brothers at the time and said what they're doing, whether Warner Brothers could have come in and straightened it out, or didn't they have that power over it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I mean, let's look at it this way. Also, you shut down a movie, there are a lot of people that are affected by that.
yes.
Everybody, there's crews of 20, 25 people, and they have families, and this is their living. And you have to take that into account. So you don't know if the movie's going to be good or bad in most cases. I've worked on films that I thought, this is going to be a big hit. Not so much. I've worked on other films that surprised me.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to, everybody says, well, why would they make that? You never know. You never know what's behind the door.
Right.
And we're talking a little.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Who's the most your favorite director that you worked with, that you had the most fun with, and you thought was a talented director?
Well, of course, I could always say myself because I did direct one film. It's the crew. It's the respect. I worked on Dave. The director was a little aloof, but the actors, especially Kevin Kline, absolutely delightful.
Yeah.
A man.
Yes, I worked with him on Chaplin. He was terrific.
Terrific. Yeah. And he would say to me and others, I'm very fortunate because I've never had to be a waiter. I just fell into this, and this is the only job I know. And it was nice. You know, he would sit with us at lunch or whatever, and it was lovely. And it's those experiences that give me faith. And then I had the extreme pleasure of working on Tron, and that kind of came out of left field.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to do, okay, it's about a guy who goes into a video game and meets himself and then rides around on a motorcycle, but it's not a motorcycle. And as I've often said, never turn down a movie because most of them never come to fruition and you don't have to worry about it. And then if you're fortunate, you're going to have an experience that's unlike, it's not going to be like the next movie. There's not going to be, oh, well, we did it, you know, sequels.
Yeah, every movie is different, isn't it?
Every movie is different. And how many times have we been on set or on location and the locals come up and it's, you know, weather's supposed to be perfect and suddenly there's a blizzard and the locals come up and they say, gee, this has never happened here before. Going, yeah, well, that's because Hollywood came to earth down.
I've had a question, Mr. Ellenshaw, regarding something I wanted to know about a story where you lent somebody a crystal from Superman to a collector, but never got it back. Would you be able to tell us about?
Correct. Yeah, he stole it.
Ah.
Stole it, and also I think there was a cape, some other stuff, and he's out there, and yeah, that's icky stuff. I mean, the whole props is buying, selling, auctioning is another world, and I just don't like it. You know, it should be donated to BFI or the Academy Museum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. It's inevitable though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any stuff from films that you've worked on that do you get to keep stuff, or as much as these days?
No.
As it happens, I have a Superman cape if you might like to buy from me. So, no, I'm joking.
I'll give you. What do you guys have these days? You have euros, pounds, sterling. I don't know.
Pound sterling at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't have shillings.
Not anymore. No, I think it changed in the 70s.
So what is it with the Brits?
We're morons, basically.
Are you a member of the EU? Are you exiting?
No, we're not anymore, thank God. Which is why we've got all our population being vaccinated. The EU is still struggling, and they're even frowning on the AstraZeneca, which is the Oxford vaccine that we made. And thanks to President Macron, he said that it's a bit suspect. So even though they're buying it.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want politicians to be in charge of my health. They know.
Absolutely, you're quite right.
They went to medical school. They understand. Anyway, we won't get into that. You know, it's tough. I'm due to get my first shot sometime.
Oh, lovely.
And that was boy, that took forever. Anyway. No.
I did want to ask you, Mr. Ellenshaw. Obviously, Warner Brothers cut the film down considerably. Is it correct that the Sydney Fury wanted to reshoot scenes and they just blanketly said no?
Oh yeah, Sydney said, "Oh yeah, I'll convince them. I'll tell them. They said, nah, nope."
So, because obviously I would have thought that Warner Bros. Would have cared about Superman, but then to suddenly just sort of throw the film under the bus was a bit of an odd sort of thing to do. They would have thought you'd try to save it. It was in their interests as to save the film, but they kind of just sort of washed their hands of it.
You know, it's Hollywood, and there are just some things you can't explain. I agree with you that Warner Brothers, which at one point was bought by a man who was very rich from making shoes or something, you know. I've forgotten who. Oh God, but yeah, these are what we now call franchises and precious ones. So if it's very tricky doing sequels, and I have a theory that the higher the number after the title, like Superman 4, the lower the quality. So as the numbers go up, the quality goes down. Now that's a huge generalization, because there's two films that kind of disprove that. And
Godfather 2.
Godfather, yeah, 1 and 2, and The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
and I think studios just kind of want to have that insurance. If they put Superman on, you're still going to get an audience.
Yeah.
But it's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed.
I mean, when you did Empire Strikes Back, I mean, were you aware at the time how special that film was?
I'm sorry, say that.
I was just saying, as you mentioned Empire Strikes Back, were you aware at the time how special that film was going to be?
Well, the pressure was probably some of the toughest that I've ever experienced, and that is because George didn't tell us what the ending was, so we had no idea. You know, I am your father. Sorry, spoiler alert. So we were kind of still under so much pressure because the first one had been so popular. Now, and I had done maybe a dozen matte paintings on Star Wars. I refuse to call it Star Wars, Force Awakens. That's ridiculous. You know, Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's it. If you do, and if you say, "Oh, which one?" then I'll punch you in the face.
Which one?
Well, I'm going to break my television. God, there was so much pressure to prove to the world that the first one wasn't a fluke, that this one was really going to be cool.
Yeah.
And I had the honor of working in the same room at ILM with Ralph McQuarrie, and I was the matte painting supervisor, and I was Ralph McQuarrie's boss. Okay, Ralph, not sure about that. Could you? Yeah. Oh, you designed that. Oh, okay. Such a delightful man who, and George really liked him and didn't want to, let him go after we started production. So George said, "Why don't you work with Harrison in the matte department?" And Ralph said, so I started to try to, teach him about wedges and exposures and things like that. He said, "You know what? I'll let you take care of that. I'll just paint." I said, "Okay." And I said,
That's a nice story.
So, he was delightful. And I gave him the shots that were the wide shots, were the establishing shots. The one where they walk out to greet Han Solo on, in Cloud City.
Yes.
And it was great because it took so much pressure off of me. We had 85 matte paintings between basically 3 artists.
Wow.
And one of the artists, Michael Pangracio, was doing the backgrounds, the scenic backgrounds for the walkers on, 8 foot by 15 foot paintings. So the walkers were on a set, miniature set with a background on it, so that they didn't have to shoot them against blue screen. That's why they look so stunningly good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, just brilliant stuff in that movie. And I arrived late. They'd already started because I was working on the black hole. Well, there's a whole nother story behind that. And so I literally left one day, drove up to San Rafael and started the next. And they'd already shot the asteroid sequence. I walked in and said hi, and then walked to the back, and I could see these curtains up, and I looked around, and then there was Dennis Muren at the camera, and Phil Tippett and John Berg and the other guy, great guy. And they were shooting this stuff frame by frame.
Yeah.
So they pop up out of the in little covers, if you will, in the set, and then adjust and then shoot it again. I thought, this is nuts. This will take forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your point? I didn't get a lot of sleep in those days. Thankfully, it was filmed, so there was a cutoff time before you had to be finished to get it on a plane to fly it up to a lab in Seattle, of all places. Like I say, didn't get a lot of sleep, but man, what a great film.
Yeah.
It was almost a perfect storm. So many talented people on it. It just was amazing.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's an absolute masterpiece. I did have a question from a guy called Martin Lakin. You mentioned that disastrous test screening of Superman 4. He wanted to know if that was a finished film or just like a rough assembly that the audience would have seen.
I'm sorry, the rough assembly.
Yeah, yes, he wondered in that disaster screening where they were throwing the pencils at the screen, were they seeing the finished film or like just like a rough cut at that point?
Oh, good point. It must have been a rough cut. Well, it was over 2 hours long.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're lucky they didn't set fire to the thing.
Wasn't it voted by some American critics as probably the worst film ever made at that time?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're right. It was there was a Rotten Tomatoes is still around.
But as you know, and I know, it was actually the greatest film ever made. So
Of course it was. I knew that. There were subversive, jealous people
of course, yes.
like Coppola who didn't want the competition. So they planted all these bad reviews.
I do want to ask, because obviously, did you have to be very inventive on Superman for effects wise to make the money go as far as you did? Did you have to sort of do things that, you know, you wouldn't have had to done to the other pictures?
Well, yeah, one of the things was we couldn't take the time to do front projection or rear projection. So it was go, go, go. And I said, I had to come up with these quick and dirty and not always successful methods. I'm still, I'm not going to tell you the things that bother me, and it's too much.
We'd be happy to hear them, but
it was an experience.
Okay, well, volcano.
Philip, I've got to go, I'm afraid. So
okay, thank you very, very much, Mike, for joining us. Did you have any finishing comments you wanted to make, Martin, or?
I don't think so. It's been a thrill to see Mr. Ellenshaw again. So
Wonderful for him to join us too. It's been fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Martin. We'll let you go. You've been very, very kind to spend so much time with us, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
All right, you take care, all of you, and all of you remain healthy if you can.
You too, Martin. Thank you very much. I don't know where Mr. Ellenshaw, you'd just like to hang on for a few more minutes, would that be okay?
Okay. I'm hanging on for a few minutes.
Oh, I was just gonna. If you did need to go, Martin, I just wonder whether Mr. Ellenshaw would like to stay on for a couple of minutes after you're gone, or if you have to rush off, or do you want to stay for a few minutes, Martin?
Yeah, look, he's in his lumber room. He doesn't care.
Okay. Well, if you want to go, Martin, that's lovely. And I'll keep chatting with Harrison, and if that's okay, Martin.
Are you still working, Harrison?
Oh, I wish I was, but no.
You're retired.
Oh, I hate that word.
So do I.
Okay, well, I'm just old and grumpy.
So am I.
No, I'm very fortunate, and my painting skills are not what they used to be. So
that's a shame. They never were very good. So
well, I was just trying to copy your crap, and yeah.
Anyway, I am so pleased to have seen you, and I'm so pleased you're well. And we will communicate later.
Absolutely.
You take care of yourself.
Be healthy.
All the best to all of you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Harrison, I did want to ask one thing. I did read in an article somewhere that apparently the film for Superman 4 had to be bleached to make some of the outside sets like they were in America, that sort of thing, to hide the cloudy English weather. Was that true, that the film was processed in some way like that?
I'm sorry, could you?
Oh yes, of course. I did read somewhere that the film for Superman 4 had to be bleached, so to take some of the color out of it to make the English locations look a bit more sunny. Is that true?
No.
No, didn't have like a color grade. Well, I suppose color grade didn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah,
washed out.
That was a difficult film. In fact, I flew to London to do the timing or color grading on the entire film. And in those days, it was kind of like you just guessed, minus yellow, minus this. I've forgotten the exact terminology. And because Superman, normally films would go through at least two different trials. And doing timing and then revising and then go to the final answer print.
Yeah.
No, Superman didn't get that. So I was just winging it, trying to make it work.
Because it does look washed out a little bit, the film, when you sort of watch it, even some of the non-effect scenes. So I wondered whether the color palette was restricted in some way because of the processing of effects or something like that.
Well, it's Superman. Look, there are a lot of movies that cost a lot of money, and shooting in the UK is exteriors is pretty tricky.
Yeah.
Because, as you may know, the weather in England,
Yes.
it's always rainy or just starting to rain.
Yes.
Or as the weatherman would say in those days, tomorrow will be drizzle and then followed by some bright periods, followed by drizzle and more drizzle.
Yes.
And I thought, what's a bright period? When the sun is just barely peeking through. So if you're shooting in England, you can't match the continuity because you get bright sun and then it's gone. And then it's cloudy sun and then it's overcast. And then there's a little bit of drizzle, which depending on the location, you can kind of shoot around or make adjustments for it because rain doesn't show up on film unless it's backlit. That's a whole other story. So it was a little bit crazy. And we did a lot of pickups here in Southern California, especially matching the car as Clark Kent or the real estate guy comes up to visit Clark.
Yeah.
To sell the place. So we didn't have enough footage of the car coming up, so we couldn't ship the car over here. So one of us at Olson Lane and White went down to the local Ford Bronco dealer and borrowed the exact same car. I mean, Michael Lessa, another person who never says no, says, yep, let's keep going.
I did see one press release for Superman 4 that said about the nightclub battle with the first Nuclear Man. The press release did say that the sequence cost $5 million to shoot. I assume that was an outright lie by Canon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They never knew how to tell the truth. I'm being serious. Dreadful.
Yeah. It's
really shameful.
Yeah. I mean, somebody did have Martin Lakin just had a little question for you. There was obviously quite a few matte paintings that didn't make it into Superman 4. Why were they kind of cut? Because they obviously would have added quite a bit to the film.
Well, they were cut because the film was cut, so there were various sequences that didn't make it in, including matte paintings, which is always kind of difficult because you want to see a final cut or close to it before you start breaking down which matte paintings you're going to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just it was mismanaged.
Oh yeah.
Possible.
Yeah. Because I tell you, when you came on, it was all, you know, the damage was already done in terms of it all. The money going wasn't there, and I mean, how did Chris Reeve take what was happening around him?
He just he was Christopher Reeve. He never had a bad word to say about anybody. He wanted to direct second unit. So there were actually 3 second unit directors. David Lane, who took care of the flying sequences, the background shooting in New York, and myself. And I think Sydney just wanted me to kind of help Chris if he needed help. Now the first scene on the moon was on the moon set was a shot where Superman, where we had to invent the shot because Nuclear Man, this very handsome, strong man, twisted his ankle.
Right.
He shows up limping. I was thinking, this please, this cannot be true. So they're supposed to have a Nuclear Man and Superman are going to have a fight on the moon, yet Nuclear Man is limping.
Yeah.
So what do? So Superman, so out of context, steps on Nuclear Man's foot.
Yeah.
So now he has an excuse to limp around.
Oh, right. Yes.
Oh, geez.
I never knew that. That's yeah.
Well, okay, I shouldn't have said that.
No, it's lovely to hear something new.
These are the joys of filmmaking. It's not all autographs and sunglasses.
No, definitely not. Do you have any other sort of general memories of Superman 4 that you'd like to share? Any sort of happy or interesting?
It was crazy, but it was. I always remind myself on movies that this is not heart surgery. Heart surgeons can never have a bad day.
Yeah.
Movies, yeah, it rains, performances aren't what you want. Everybody's running around in circles. It's okay. But if I ever have heart surgery, they say always schedule for the middle of the week.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it's like, you don't want the heart surgeon coming in after, having a big party Sunday night.
No.
Walking into the room, go, I got such a hangover. Jeez. Okay, where are we? And it's true. I got paid for having fun.
Yeah. I mean,
And
what?
A lot of giggles along the way. Just some of us would just totally lose it at the absurdity of filmmaking.
Oh yeah. I mean, one thing about the deleted scenes that are on the DVD, they clearly are from a sort of very rough work print. Do you know why we didn't get the completed scenes, or it just seemed odd that we had them such in a raw format? Because obviously they were finished, weren't they? So
yeah, boy, it's so long ago. It was a constant series of indecision, wrong decisions, going down one road, then having to back up and take another road. And
Mm,
it was
mm.
fortunate, you know, there were some very, very talented people on it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Great English crew, but doesn't always work out. And everybody was, you know, here I am, the interloper, the Yank
Yeah.
coming over, and they were great. I was fortunate to work with wonderful
Mm,
Richard Conway. Geez, what a great guy.
mm.
Did the miniatures and all those kind of things. And it was a lovely experience.
I mean, do you remember Alf Joint, the stuntman?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was scary when the wires broke, right?
Yeah, because somebody broke
Going
both
up through the, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I can't remember what the name that I'll find out for you, but yeah, I think that ruined that ended his career. I think right
Yeah,
there.
I think you're right.
I think somebody else broke their arms on on the Metro Club fight or something like that. So
Yeah.
didn't the Cannon cousins bring some Israeli crew on the film as well? That was a problem.
Probably.
Mm.
You know, that everybody loves, especially to shoot explosions. You know, maybe it's a guy thing.
Mm.
Blow stuff up. It's really cool.
Mm.
But never, ever, ever try to shortcut that.
No.
I knew probably one of the best ever, and oh God, his name suddenly escapes me. But safety was always a paramount.
Yes.
You twist the last wires while everybody's off the set, and the pyro guy goes out there and does it, and nobody moves. And that's always been first on the list. No shot is worth a life.
Oh no, definitely not.
No, and don't, you know, and we've seen the tragedies in the business, and also people. That's why things like turnaround time have been instituted, because you don't want to work somebody 16 hours and then put them out on the road at, 3 a.m. and they fall asleep at the wheel and die.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. So keep the hours legitimate. Don't take chances, even though stuntmen and women have been kind of put out of work, but at the same time, it's important.
Oh yeah, definitely. I did want to read you a lovely comment that a gentleman called Martin Lakin has just written. He just said he wanted to make you just aware that the Superman fan base is fully aware of where the blame lies for Superman 4's shortcomings, and it's not obviously not with yourself. And he says that Harrison's a hero to us and did his best under the circumstances. That's a nice little comment. So, but did you find the film damage your career in any respect, in terms of, did people realize that it was difficult to make, or did they think, oh my God, you've lost it, or anything like that? Or
no, I have there's been a lot of progress made with CGI and pushing pixels, as somebody says.
Yeah.
And I've been very fortunate to grow up in the analog generation and then
Mm.
see the transition over to digital,
Yeah.
which happened almost overnight.
Mm.
And, but it's still, no matter what the situation, you need somebody, you need a Dennis Muren, a Rob Legato, who has what we call the eye,
Mm.
who can see visualize the shot, and more than anything, you go into dailies often, and you're looking at the shot, and you're going, gosh, there's something doesn't quite look right.
Mm.
Well, finding that is easy.
Yeah.
Fixing it is hard,
Mm.
because you have to figure out what it is.
Mm.
And that's the challenge.
I mean, do you think filmmaking today has lost something because of its reliance on digital? You know, would you have had such a happy career if you're doing everything digitally?
To a degree, because you have so many choices. It used to be you did it this way or this way or this way. Three different choices, and now anything that can be imagined can be done.
Mm.
So now we have to go back to the story.
Mm.
How does it work? You know, you can read books all your life, and you can not quite understand that mystical thing about creativity.
Yeah.
Why does this matte painting work better than this matte painting? Both painted brilliantly, attention to detail.
Yeah.
And it's rhythm and flow.
Mm.
It seems easy, but oh my gosh,
It's not. Mhm.
I've been
Mm.
there are days, even as I was getting toward the end of my career, where I just shake my head and go,
Mm.
this just isn't working.
Yeah.
People say, well, why? I go, I don't know.
Mm.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And you can't wait for the muse to strike, because there's 2,500 theaters, 3,000 theaters worldwide. And if you say, well, you know, I'll think about it, and very soon, I don't think there's ever been a successful picture that's come out with scene missing.
Yeah. No, definitely not.
So,
I assume that one of the highlights of being on Superman 4 was working with your father Peter. I imagine that must have been lovely to do.
oh, yeah, I he it's always such a thrill to have the chance to work with my father, who has, I didn't really want to go into film, because I was always afraid that I would be trying to follow in his footsteps, and fill those shoes, very large shoes.
Mm.
That's why I changed my name to Harrison. I didn't want to be Peter Ellenshaw's son, although I was Peter Ellenshaw's son.
Yeah.
So it was a mixed kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I think I'm fortunate that I had Alan Maley as my mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan was a wonderful, wonderful artist, and visual effects, et cetera, et cetera. He knew so much, and taught me so much. And one time I was an apprentice in the matte department,
Mm.
and my father was, I think, working on Island of the Top of the World or something. And so my father would come in and see what I was doing and say a few things. And Alan banned him from the matte painting room because my father would make me so nervous. So he said, no, I'll be quiet. I won't say anything. Alan said, okay, but you cannot say a word. And I was painting on something and I could feel my father behind me. And I'm thinking, oh God, I can't do this. And after about, minute and a half, I hear this sigh. It goes, and I go, what? Nothing. I loved him.
Well, yeah, well, as we do as fans, we're all aware of his work, so it's obviously wonderful to be such a talented family, really, and have that sort of skills passed through. I'm always envious of people who can paint, and fantastic skills to have. The last question I have from the chat was, were you ever involved in a conversation about a Superman 5 with Canon? Did that ever come up?
About what? Sorry.
Because Canon were interested in making Superman 5 with some of the deleted scenes. Were you ever aware of a Superman 5 discussion or a part of it, or?
Superman sides?
Oh no! So a Superman 5, a Superman 5. Canon wanted to make another.
Superman 5.
Yeah, were you ever aware of that?
Yeah, it was revived. It was years afterwards. I can't even remember seeing it.
Because Canon films, obviously, because they cut the 45 minutes out of the film, they were quite interested in using that as a base for another film. I think '89 they were trying to release that one. Were you aware of those horrendous plans?
I was vaguely aware, but because I wasn't involved, it's very deep in my receding brain cells.
Yes, we're very glad they didn't do that. And I suppose last question I just want to ask from a fan's point of view, what was your favorite film to have worked on in your career?
My answer to that is they're all like my children. I love them, even though each one's different. I'd have to say if oh God, Dave,
yeah.
Dave, just brilliant concept, beautifully done. We pulled off a very tricky shot when Kevin Kline as Dave meets the president, played by Kevin Kline, and that was very tricky to do. And we're shooting at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles in the presidential suite. It was one of the hottest days of the summer, had to be 110 in there, no air conditioning. And we had pre-programmed a move, and then Ivan Reitman came in, and this had all been planned, and we showed him the move, pushed the button, the camera went on a curved track, and Ivan, in his own inimitable way, said, "I don't like that move." Yeah, well, there you go. He's Canadian.
I suppose, so even Superman 4, you have affection for. Probably, perhaps as the time goes by, you can watch it and you're fairly okay with it as a.
Yeah.
I mean, we mentioned obviously different nationalities. Did you like working in the UK compared to America? Was there any benefits, disadvantages?
Well, yeah, it's different. You know, there's rushes and there are dailies. So, I mean, I speak American,
Yeah.
which we conveniently call English, but it's not. It's American.
There's differences, aren't there?
And so everything on a set has a different name to it, which is not that tough because, you know, English crews are great and they know what I mean. And again, some really wonderful people, cameraman, and, plus the philosophy is different. That the camera operator in America has a different responsibility than the camera operator in England, who has a little bit more responsibility about setting up shots and designing this, that, and other thing. Here, you know, and I've worked with a lot of different camera people, and people who have won Oscars, and I just didn't like them because they were too impressed with their own, you know what. And I won't mention any Italian names.
I mean, obviously, Disney's based over here in Pinewood Studios, and lots of big action films and big Hollywood films seem to be shot over here in Pinewood, Leavesden, Elstree. Why do you think so many big American projects want to base themselves over in the UK?
Well, I used to be cynical and say that producers would schedule a film to be shot in the UK starting at the beginning of the year. And that was because Harrods always had a beginning of the year sale.
Right. Yeah.
Americans love Harrods. They also like the Dorchester. And yeah, I do miss England.
Yeah, I like the Dorchester as well. I prefer Fortnum Masons to Harrods. That's a bit. I think Harrods is a bit touristy, to be honest. But
well, there's also another one of my favorites. Oh, I can't think of it. A great hotel.
The Savoy.
I'm sorry. No.
Claridge's. Got Savoy, got Claridge's.
The one that's across from the park. Oh God.
Oh, Hyde Park.
No. Great.
Green Park.
I'll think of it in a minute.
Yeah.
It's gone. Anyway.
I know what you mean. Yeah. The Ritz.
No.
Is it the Ritz? No.
No, it's the one that has the great restaurant next to it, and as part of it, and it's across from Audley Park. Yeah, right on the corner. Okay.
If you think of it,
the Connaught.
So what was it? Sorry.
The Connaught.
The Connaughts.
CONNAUGHT.
Right. I'll make sure to give it a visit once lockdown's over. Like I quite like going around the cocktail bars in London and the Dorchester and stuff. So I'll add that to my list. That's lovely.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know if it's there. No. But you'll have to rob a bank to afford a meal there.
Oh yes, yes. I'll save up my salary. It's 6 months worth, I imagine. But oh, somebody's very kindly put a link to the hotel. The hotel's still there, and somebody's very kindly put a little link on the chat there. So if anybody wants to go there, they've got the info. So that's lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Harrison, for very unexpectedly and very wonderfully joining us this evening. I know it was very clear how happy Martin was to see you, and it was lovely seeing you both reminisce. So a real pleasure for hopefully for the both of you, but also everyone watching. That was fantastic, and thank you for giving so much of your time. You know, real giant of cinema to join a very humble meeting. That's been very kind of you.
I enjoyed it.
So,
It was an honor and a
good.
pleasure. And seeing Martin, it's made my week.
It's a real honor for us as well, because I assume you don't get to see the film being so disjointed. You probably don't see people that often, or you do 6 months with somebody and then you may not see them again, perhaps.
Yeah. Yep.
So this is our first watch along party, so it's been a huge success. Hopefully we'll do something else soon, and maybe even you might like to join us for something. That would be an honor if we could do that. But
I'm happy to help out however I can.
Oh, that's very kind of you. I'll certainly get in touch if any good ideas come to mind. Well, thank you very much, Harrison. We've enjoyed talking to you immensely. I just want to say thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. I've been a huge fan of yours for many years. So thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you. A real pleasure.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to everyone that's joined us for this event. I hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully this is the first of a series of events. So I'll keep you up to date with what we might do next, and just thank you all for joining in and making it so special. So once again, thanks to Martin and Harrison for their wonderful time today. Okay. Thank you very much. I will end the meeting. Thank you very much, Harrison.
Be safe.
You too. Take care.